So at like
Right.
age 20, 21, I was given this sort of decision of like, hey, we can fix you, but you'll become infertile. Bad head injury when I was quite little, about 6. And then again, when I was 17, I was in a car crash and like got knocked out, concussed for a while. And then after that, for the next several years, I just sort of had like lower energy, a lot of migraines and stuff, things I'd never really had before. And then at 21, my partner Charlie, who is my wife now, we've been together since we're about 16, she convinced me to go to the doctors. And then when I went there, they found that my like hormonal system was sort of all over the show. So it would release like mass amounts of testosterone. Like the scale is 9 to 30 nmol, and mine would do like 40. And then the next day it would be like 5. So like
Oh
as
wow.
if I was like a geriatric, yeah. And it was kind of steadily going down. Long journey from that of MRIs and things like that, where they found my pituitary gland was pressed down, and so they think that was the cause of the hormonal fluctuations. But anyway, after seeing like a couple endocrinologists and things like that, the prescribed treatment is testosterone replacement, which is like exogenous injections of testosterone every few days. But the catch of that is once you start injecting, your testes essentially say like, oh, I don't have to make any testosterone now, so I'll shut down. And if they shut down, they don't make sperm. So at like
Right.
age 20, 21, I was given this sort of decision of like, hey, we can fix you, but you'll become infertile. And then me and Charlie both wanted to have kids. So I was like, well, I can't do that. But that kind of, it made things quite serious quite early on, you know. So fertility was like something I was aware of straight
It
away.
forced you to have those thoughts very early on,
Yeah.
make those decisions. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I ended up just trying to see if I could like eat really well. Like I went keto back before keto was really a thing because that was meant to help cut out all my sugars, take zinc and all sorts of vitamins. And it didn't really work. The fluctuations kept happening, and then I did have bloods every 3 months, and it was just a steady decline. So rather than the highs I was getting, it was just getting lower and lower until by 24 I was pretty much consistently at like a 9, which is like a 75-year-old man. And
Right.
then I was starting to just get like really low, depressed, no libido, no drive for life or anything. And it was like, okay, I've got to do something. So then, yeah, sorry again, it's a bit of a long story, but I'll try and condense it.
That's okay.
But so sweet. Yeah, so then went in, followed it up, another long process, but froze my swimmers so that we had like an insurance plan, and
Yeah.
then went on the testosterone replacement, and then kind of accepted that I would be infertile. And then within 3 months, my sperm count was 0, no live sperm detected. So it did exactly what they said it would do. So that was a real bummer and quite a hard thing of like, oh, we're gonna have to have like IVF or IUI to be able to have a baby. Yeah, so it was quite a lot. But then,
And how
oh
old were
sorry,
you at this point? How old
so
were you
I'm
at that
20,
point?
24 at this point, so still pretty young for this sort of
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, and even like going on the testosterone replacement, that was like its own thing because then like suddenly I have testosterone and there's a whole brain shift with that. But yeah, then I sort of got quite almost obsessive of learning all about hormones and fertility, and then seeing that like in America, they prescribe HCG, human chorionic gonadotropin, that in New Zealand, Australia, and UK actually they give that to women, but they don't really give it to men for fertility. But in America, they do it because it tells the testes to make sperm. I was like, why are
Yeah.
they giving it in America? And then and I just and like this is the beauty of forums and Reddit, even though they're not the most scientific sources. I was seeing all these dads on testosterone replacement becoming dads, and I was like, what? Like, how is this? What is this? So then that started a huge journey of getting all these different research papers, and I went to like multiple urologists, endocrinologists in New Zealand, and there's not many, just to be like, hey, there's this drug we have in New Zealand. I know it's only like prescribed for women, but here's all this evidence saying that it can work for men. And I got shut down over and over again until eventually
Yeah.
one guy was like, yeah, well, we'll just see what happens. If we monitor your bloods all the time and you pay for all the treatment, we'll try it out. And so I managed to convince him. So I think I was like the first person in New Zealand as a man to get this drug.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was pretty intense. And then even then, I was like, I wasn't sure if it was going to work, because it was sort of, it's a bit of, like there's some science saying it does, others saying maybe. Like it was a bit hit or miss. The plan was to go on HCG for 12 months while staying on my testosterone replacement. And then if
Yeah.
that didn't work, I was going to drop the testosterone and just do HCG, which then would get my fertility back, but I'd be right back to having no testosterone and feeling miserable. So that was sort of like a less than ideal situation.
Yeah.
But then, so I started the HCG, but it does this. So like HCG is, I'll do a quick science lesson.
Yeah.
It mimics luteinizing hormone, and HCG is actually what is tested in a pregnancy test. Like when a woman weighs on a pregnancy test and it's positive, it's detecting the HCG
I was
in their
going to say
urine.
that, yeah, because it escalates very quick, doesn't it? And when
Yeah,
it
yeah.
doubles and
It's
doubles into the tens of thousands.
like every 12 hours. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and HCG is actually extracted from pregnant woman's urine. So it costs quite a bit of money because it's like a live product.
Right.
Yeah. So that luteinizing hormone, if you give it to a man, it goes down to the testes and it tells them, hey, you need to turn back on. It's the signal your brain would normally give you. And so that's great because it makes spermatogenesis. But the downside is because it's not real luteinizing hormone, when it's done its job, it aromatizes, which means it turns into estrogen. So it does its job and then it turns into estrogen, and then you've got a bunch of estrogen floating around in your system. So
Right.
this treatment was like every 2 days I had to subcutaneous in the stomach inject this HCG. But then after like a couple of weeks, I was all puffy and super emotional, like PMS symptoms. Because I was a teacher at the time, and like I remember the kids would say, like, you suck, Mr. Donnelly, or something like that, as kids do. I taught intermediate, like year 7, year 8. But yeah, I remember they'd say something like that, and it would just like, it would hit me right in the feels, or like, I don't know,
Yeah.
something would go wrong, and I would just feel like blind rage, like, I'm so angry. I just had no regulation. And I remember saying to Charlie, like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, I can't handle this constant flux state. And yeah, at like 2 months in, nothing had happened sperm wise as well. So I was like, is it actually going to happen? But then at about 3-ish months, there was 1 million sperm, which is still like, so the range for sperm is like 50 million to 300 million. And like for a young, healthy male, you're probably around 200 to 300 million. And I had 1 million. So I'm still like super infertile, but they're back. So that was super encouraging. And that was like, okay, let's like increase the dose. And my urologist was happy to see it too. So then we upped the dose, and then I guess my body just sort of got used to it because the side effects weren't nearly as bad. And then only at maybe 5-ish months, Char showed me this positive pregnancy test, and we're like, what? Like, I can't believe it. It was